Welcome to Spicy Toast Gaming. Thank you for tuning in to another Spicy Toast video. Today we'll be covering Aatrox and a guide for Path of Champions. If you enjoy the video, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. We're going to start off with an overview, just giving you some basics on how the champion plays, and if this is someone you want to invest your time and shards into. So first we have Darkin. Aatrox is kind of the true Darkin deck in my opinion. Kayn and Varus, while yes they are both Darkin, it's not really core to how they play. If they use any of the Darkin equipment, they're just using it as equipment, and you're almost never playing the actual Darkin units as units. Whereas with Aatrox, you're actually using them both as equipment, but also as units. He's really leaning into the Darkin theme, and he's utilizing it better than anyone else. Next we have cost reduction. So Aatrox himself costs 6 mana, kind of expensive. You'd expect him to be a slower deck, but every time you're striking with an equipped unit, you're reducing the cost of the cards in your hand, and so it's a very unique playstyle of playing cards and cheating them out much earlier than you normally could. Next we have sustain. So he has multiple ways to sustain. He has lifesteal units in his deck, and then Aatrox himself also can give you constant sustain. It's not as crazy as someone like Gwen, but probably after Gwen it is potentially the next highest sustain for any champion baseline for Path of Champions. Next we have consistent champion draw. So Aatrox, like most of the Darkin, has a way to draw himself based on essentially like his passive, and you're actually able to get that off quite easily, much easier than like Kayn's. Probably about similar to Varus for how easy you can draw him, but he also has a spell that has Champion's Horn on it, so he has multiple ways to draw himself and just champions in general. And next we have strong scaling. So yes, this means both in-game, he has very strong scaling, but also out of game, your permanent progression, leveling up the champion, getting more relics on him, getting your champion levels, he's going to just get stronger and stronger. So he has very strong scaling. Even though he's strong, just the 2-star powers, I think he's going to get absolutely crazy when you get the 3-star powers. Lastly, we have versatile relic builds. There's so many different ways to build him. It's probably one of the most versatile champions as far as relic builds in Path of Champions. So if you like being able to play one champion, but play him in many different ways based on the relics you pick, then Aatrox is a great champion for that. Alright, let's go in game now, take a look at the champion, his deck, and what relics you might want to run on him. In game with Kayn now, you see we have him at level 20 and at 2 stars. So he is a 6th cost champion. He has his origin, so you may put any non-champion Darkin into your deck during deck building. That doesn't really apply to us in Path of Champions, but once you've played or summoned 3 different other Darkin, draw an Aatrox. So that's actually pretty easy to do. The Darkin equipment counts as Darkin, so you don't actually have to play the units. So you'll actually be able to get this off quite easily, especially once you get his 2-star, which we'll talk about in a bit. So Aatrox himself has great champion draw. You don't need to worry about not drawing him during your games. So he also has auto-equip the Darkin Blade. So that is over here, 1/1 with regen. So he is a 5/5, but that's essentially going to be a 6/6. When I'm summoned or strike, heal your Nexus 2 and create a World Ender in hand if you don't have one. So every time you're striking or summoning him, he's going to be healing your Nexus by a little bit, which is quite nice, and that can stack up to be a quite high amount throughout the game. So his level up is you've played World Ender. His level up, he gets Overwhelm and then goes to a 9/9, but this will essentially be 10/10. But he also has Darkin allies cost 5 less. So this is not the Darkin playing them as equipment, this is actually playing them as units. So kind of like Nautilus when you hit deep and suddenly you're able to play all your sea monsters for cheap, It's the same mechanic of now you can play all your big, scary Darken units that are very powerful for much less mana. His champion spell, Deathbringer. So Aatrox and enemy strike each other, create a Aatrox in your deck, and then you make a slash. So the slash, this one costs 2. Another fast, Aatrox and enemy strike each other. And then you make a descent, costs 1. Aatrox and enemy strike each other. So starts off at 3, and they all get cheaper by 1. And it's just Aatrox and enemy strike each other. So Aatrox will be taking damage from it, but you're able to get more strikes off, take out enemy threats, and then every one of these strikes is going to be healing your Nexus too. So very nice. So we have World Ender. Starts out at 13 mana. Reduce my cost by 1 for each time an equipped ally or darkened ally has struck this game. So even when this isn't played, it's still getting reduced because it's any time it's happened during the game. So you don't have to worry about necessarily playing Aatrox early to drop this. It's still going to be counting down. So once you play this, assimilate allies equipped with a Darken. So transform equipped allies with Darken units into their Darken unit forms. If they are champions, they level up. This just means Darken champions level up. Normal champions aren't affected. So what this does is you will play a unit, and if you give them a Darken equipment, if this gets played, what happens is they become the Darken unit, but they still are equipped with their Darken weapon at the same time, and then they get all of these stats and keywords that the unit had that got assimilated. So you're summoning the Darken unit while it is equipped with its weapon, so very strong right there, and then it has just all the stats and keywords of that unit. So very powerful. It really is World Ender, or should be called a Game Ender. So if we take a look at his starting deck, Forsaken Makai. So play Predict. If you pick a Darken on equipment, grant me 1/1. I guess we can do the star powers first. So I don't know what's going on with his icons. Your rank 1 star power, when an equipped ally strikes, reduce the cost of a random card in hand by 1. Your 2-star, +1 starting mana. Game start, create in hand 2 random Darken equipment. This is amazing. So for 1, it's making 2 Darken equipment with his passive. Once you play 3 Darken, you summon Aatrox. You can use these 2 Darken and just equip a unit 3 times, even with these same 2 equipment, and it will get you Aatrox. So essentially, the very start of the game, it gives you a way to summon Aatrox if he's not already in your hand. Very nice, and this is really the best in the game as far as summoning equipment. Other champions have to actually complete something or do something in order to summon equipment, and it often doesn't happen until partway through the game. Here you don't have to worry about it, just game start, you get 2 random Darken equipment. Very, very nice. His 3-star, when an equipped ally strikes, reduce the cost of a random card in hand by 2. So while this is just a doubling effect, it's actually going to be much more powerful than the rank 1 version, because you're just going to be able to play things, essentially more likely going to be playing them for free, and then getting something out around early is going to have a massive impact. So while it is just a doubling effect, reducing the cost of something in hand by 2 is massive, and the fact that you can do that multiple times, very strong. He's already strong with the 2-star. I've had no problem farming Galio since like level 11. That's how I was able to level him up so fast. But yeah, this is very strong. Star powers, his rank 3 is going to be crazy. So you need equipped allies, though. You're always trying to equip your allies, but your 2-star giving you that equipment so you don't have to worry about not getting it. So his starting deck again, Forsaken Makai, play Predict. If you pick a Darken or equipment, grant me 1/1. Get that Chain Vest on there. Steadfast Elkin. The first time I see an ally equipped, grant me Tough. Really good stat line, a nice blocker for the early game, a good platform for you to use equipment on. The Darkin Staff, so this is pretty crazy. So it's a 1 cost, but you get Phage on it, so it gives you 2/2, Impact, and then Strike, refill 1 spell mana. So this is equipment that's baseline in your deck. It's great to have, gives your unit a lot of stats, and it's also refilling your mana. Once you assimilate or play Aatrox, you can play this for cheap. You get Balkux. When you spend spell mana, grant me impact for every spell mana you spend, and then this is just a giant unit to help you end the game. Really nice to have this, especially with that Phage. Keeper of the Box. So once you've equipped an ally this game, grant me lifesteal. This is also great, giving you a good amount of sustain, and you're pretty much going to be equipped all the time. And then this is another target where you can give them equipment, and then once they assimilate, that big Darkin unit is going to have that lifesteal. So very nice. The Darkin Aegis, so 2 cost, going to be a 2/2, really nice, gives you tough. Or you can play this as Jor-El. So Challenger tough, your opponent's spells cost 2 more while I'm attacking. This you get to play it for free because when Aatrox levels up, he reduces the cost of Darkin allies by 5, so you can play this for free. It might still pop up with the cost for this, but once you pull it up, it lets you choose what one you want to do. So this might still cost 2, but you'll be able to play him for free. The Violent Discord. So, Discord. Deal 1 to a unit. If you've equipped an ally this game, so you have, copy with the same targets. This has Hero's Horn, so this is copied, so all the items on this happen twice. So that's really good. If you can get any items in this during an adventure, very strong. Being able to summon 2 champions, really good champion draw. So if you're using Aatrox more of a support deck, which he is good at, this is very nice for drawing your support champion. Also later, you're going to get a Poro snack on here. So when you play this, you're going to be summoning 2 Poros. Blooming Cultist, another great card. His whole deck is just very well made. So 3 cost, once you've equipped an ally this game, grant me elusive, and gets that nice 4/3. So you have a cheap elusive that you can play. And just remember that all of these are going to often be discounted, so you're going to be playing them for less. Furious Wielder, an equipped ally strikes an enemy. So this is in all of the decks for the Darkin, but it feels best here because often you can get this for cheaper. And then also getting a nice strike off with Aatrox to heal your Nexus, very good. And then you have Aatrox. So your entire deck, as you can see here, is actually pretty cheap, other than Aatrox himself. If we look at the champion levels, so Furious Wielder is going to get Ardent Censor. Violent Discord gets that Poro Snacks, like I mentioned. But here's the important one. Furious Wielder gets Mana Potion. So that makes your entire deck 3 or less. So at the start of the game, when you're getting those cost reductions, 1 to 2 hits and like anything in your deck is going to be free to play other than Aatrox. So your deck is already cheap, and then it's going to be even cheaper. So very strong, you're going to be very aggressive, especially once you hit that 2 stars. So let's go take a look at Relics now. There's a lot of very good relics you can use on Aatrox. So Crown Guard Inheritance is pretty good for your first rare relic, because you play Aatrox, you get your World Ender down. Once you can play that, you then can play all of your Darkin allies for cheap. So essentially, you play World Ender, you can fill up your board with Darkin allies if you don't already have a full board, and you can often just attack to end the game. So try it out for your first rare relic. It works out pretty well. You can equip your first rare, I believe, at level 8. For common relics, where is it? Challenger works quite well for Aatrox. He doesn't have the biggest stat line, especially if you're not able to get him out too early. So you want to be able to safely attack and get those strikes off and then be able to regenerate your health. Without that, often there's going to be opponents, especially again like the Galio or Aurelian Soul, they'll just be stronger than you and you won't be able to attack with your Aatrox, and that feels very, very bad. So Challenger is kind of the best, I would say, for Aatrox for Common Relic. Troll King's Crown, not bad. Aatrox himself gets overwhelmed when he levels up, but Troll King's Crown can be decent for helping your other units. The Scourge's Stash, further trying to cheat out Aatrox. Not too bad. You normally will be able to hit the enemy Nexus to trigger this. So not as good as some others, but could be fun to play with. So the Deceiver's Crest and the Grand General's Counterplan. Both of these, especially the Grand General's Counterplan, can be very nice for Aatrox. If you're going to run with this, you probably also want to do Archangel Staff to get your spell mana back. So your spell is your Deathbringer Sweep. You're able to strike an enemy, well, you strike each other, and then you can create your other 2 spells that do the same thing. So getting 3 strikes off every single round because you're generating that spell, very nice. It's going to be mana intensive though, so you're going to want Archangels and then try to pick up cost reduction powers for your spells throughout the match. Gatebreaker and Stalker's Blade. Where is the Stalker's Blade? Anyways, so Gatebreaker and the Stalker's Blade, they both have the same effect of when you summon him, he strikes either the Nexus or the strongest enemy. That works decent since you're getting those strikes off and able to heal up your Nexus. They're not quite as good as they are on some other champions, but they are still decent to play around with. Tempest Blade, this can go well with your Crown Guard to just try to end the game right there. Berserker's Buckle, which I have when I survive damage, grant me 2/2. You're going to be attacking a lot with Aatrox. You're trying to get those strikes off. His spell means the enemy is going to hit you. This works to just try to scale up. I played with this in a couple matches. It's decent, but I think this is probably going to be better once you have your 3-star and you're able to get Aatrox out earlier. Right now it's just a 1-star. I'm actually going to get rid of this and get something else, potentially Tempest Blade. So here's the Stalker Blade that I was talking about, when I'm summoned to strike the strongest enemy. Blade Rack, giving your allies Challenger, always good. And there is the Archangels, so round start, refill your spell mana. There's a lot of different ways you can go with him, and I'm really interested to see what builds people are able to come up with. He definitely seems like a champion that can go many different directions with his relics, which I find very exciting. Alright, let's go on to powers and support champions. Up first for powers, we have Domination, Round Start, Rally. So you want to get strikes off, especially with all your units, having them equipped. Every time they're striking, they're reducing the cost of other cards in your hand. So being able to attack every single round, very, very nice. Crush, allies have Overwhelm. Always good to have if you're not going to be running with Troll King's Crown. This is pretty good to make sure all your units have their damage actually going through to hit the Nexus and they're not just getting blocked out. Vanguard Lookout. This is actually quite important. Game start, summon 2 Vanguard Lookouts. Honestly, any of the powers that summon units at the start of the game work well. Since you're already generating 2 equipment at the start of the game, it's nice to be able to have targets to equip right away and not having to spend the mana to play them. That way you can start getting those strikes off and start reducing the cost of all your other units. It scales quite well. So any of the powers that summon units at game start, very good. I prefer Vanguard Lookouts the best, but any of them work well. Up next, we have Fixer Upper. Round start, give your weakest ally 3/3 this round. You want to be somewhat protective of your units. You want them to survive. That way they can be transformed and assimilated with the Darken to give them more stats and keywords. So Fixer Upper, give your weakest ally 3/3. Very nice for protecting your units and letting them survive till the end of the game. Trifarian Might, when you summon a 5+ power ally, it strikes the weakest enemy. Pretty nice. Baseline, most of your units at the start aren't going to be able to trigger this, but Aatrox can, getting that one more strike off, healing Nexus a bit, and then if your cards get buffed up, more can trigger this. It essentially works as free removal and can be quite nice. The best defense, allies have attack, grow my health to match my power. Similar to Fixer Upper in the sense of you want your units to be able to survive. This gives you a great way to be able to attack every single round, or attack, block, and then know you can attack again because your health is going to be filled back up. Very nice and very powerful for Aatrox. For the last group of powers here, so Spellslinger, your spells cost 1 less. This is very important for Aatrox's champion spell. Very nice to get all of those reduced down by 1. Sorcery, round start, refill your spell mana. You have a lot of spells, and your equipment can also be played as spells. So having that spell mana gives you more freedom to play your cards earlier. With Aatrox, you really want to be a high tempo and getting ahead of your opponent with all of your cost reduction. So having more mana to spend in the early parts of the game works out quite well. And then Wild Inspiration, your created cards cost 1 less. So your 2-star power, creating those 2 equipment, this reduces both of those down by 1, which means that there's a good chance those equipment is going to be free. And then this also works well for Aatrox's spell, since the last 2 are created, and they will get reduced down by 1 as well. So all of these also work well just to help you maintain that high tempo and play all the cards you want to play as soon as possible. Taking a look at support champions now. As always, we don't just want to give you a list of support champions, we want to know why you want to choose certain champions. So first we have equipment. You scale very well with having equipped units. Now Darken equipment is best so they can assimilate, but honestly, any equipment works well because your equipped ally striking, that's how you trigger your main star power of reducing the cost of your other cards. So a support ally, support champion with equipment, very nice to have. Next we have Darken. So you are kind of the best Darken deck, at least following that Darken theme. So if you can get another Darken ally with some more Darken equipment, you can have some pretty good synergy there. Ramp. So if you want to be a support platform and potentially try to play with a support champion that's more expensive, like Aurelion Sol or Viego, any of those high cost champions, you can actually do that quite well because most of your powers, they're going to just help reduce the cost of whatever's in your hand. And so even playing it without Aatrox or have Aatrox just in the background works fine, especially since you know you're going to draw your Aatrox anyways and you can focus on trying to get the other champion out and getting more copies of them. So any ramp champions definitely work well if you want to play that way. And then attack and strike. So any decks where you're going to get multiple attacks off, so like Scout, Rally, or any that will give you a out of combat strike, work quite well. So for the actual champions now, we have Jax. Jax is a bunch of cheap units that all have improvise, so they give themselves an equipment that would help to reduce down the cost of your cards in hand. Next we have Kayn. Kayn, Darken, works well filling that niche, gives you more Darken equipment. Aurelion Sol for that ramp, very powerful, and you can cheat him out much earlier. And then Lucian. So Lucian, when he levels up, you can get your rallies off, and works pretty well to get those multiple attacks in. Alright, that's it for the support champions and the Aatrox guide. We'll be doing the LeBlanc one coming out tomorrow, most likely. If you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching that video all the way to the end. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. We're putting out multiple videos every single day for Path of Champions content. So if that interests you, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and welcome to the channel. Have a great day.